Today, we're gonna go over the top 6 pepper mistakes that you want to avoid. Mistake number 1 is don't top or over prune your pepper plants. And what I mean by that is at the beginning of the season, when you very first start growing your seeds, what a lot of people will do is they will cut the tops of their pepper plants off. They do this because it's supposed to promote a bushier plant, which gives you more branches and in turn more peppers. I've grown a lot of peppers for a lot of years. I know a lot of people that have grown a lot of peppers for a lot of years, and the people that grow the most amount of peppers aren't topping their plants. And so after about 2 or 3 years of growing my own peppers, I decided to just stop with the topping and see what I end up getting at the end of the season. What happens when you top a plant, let's say you need to start your seeds 6 weeks before you put them outdoors. If you start those seeds at 6 weeks, and then after 4 weeks of growing, you cut the top of that plant off, you just set that plant back weeks and weeks and weeks. Now that plant has to regrow its foliage and really push out some new growth before it can even think about pushing out flowers. Now the exception to this is if you started extremely early, so instead of 6 weeks early, you started 12 weeks early. In that case, you could probably get away with topping, but in my opinion, it doesn't give you the yield that you think it might. The peppers that I just let grow naturally are the peppers that give me the highest yield out of any other plants that I have. As soon as I learned this, I don't think I've topped a single plant since then. I don't prune them, I don't top them, I don't do anything else. I let them grow naturally, I let them grow wild, and they just get out of control. And I also feel the same way about pruning. If you don't need to prune your pepper plants, then I wouldn't. Just let the branches grow, let them put on some foliage, some flowers, just let them do their thing. The only time I would recommend topping or pruning pepper plants is if you're in very limited space. Let's say you need to keep a nice short pepper plant, that is a perfect opportunity to top that pepper plant and keep it pruned nice and short and round, whatever you need to do to make sure it fits in the location that you have it, whether it be outdoors or indoors. If you are trying to keep a nice, small, compact plant just for the sake of having a compact plant, absolutely top and prune. Aside from that, if you're gonna be growing outside in the garden, I wouldn't worry too much about topping or pruning. It's just gonna set your plant back. The number 2 pepper growing mistake is don't put your plants outside too early. Peppers like warm weather. If you put them outside and you end up getting a frost, or even just put them outside when your temperature's down in the 40-degree Fahrenheit range, your plants are gonna struggle and or die. If they don't quite have a hard frost and they don't freeze, they're still gonna slow way down and it can really start your season out slow. If you're starting your peppers indoors, keep them indoors longer. Wait until your temperatures are at night at bare minimum 45 degrees. You don't want to go much lower than that. So wait until they're about 45 degrees Fahrenheit and then bring them outside. If you aren't able to keep your plants inside that long, maybe because you don't have any artificial light or you don't have any, if you don't have a grow tent or anything like that, maybe start thinking about buying your plants online. You can buy plants online at various websites, but my recommendation is always going to be start your own seeds indoors. I absolutely love growing my own seeds indoors, and I'll keep them in there as long as I possibly can. I wait until the very last second to bring them outside, and then bringing them outside after it's warm enough to really sustain that growth for your plants. And while we're on the subject of temperature, yes, peppers are warm and sun-loving plants, but too much can be too much. And what that means is pepper plants, as soon as you get up into the 90-degree Fahrenheit range, they're gonna start to slow down and suffer. You're gonna see a lot of flowers dropping, and that's completely normal. You might be growing your peppers and wondering, why are my peppers not producing any peppers? Why are they just, I mean, my flowers will grow, but they're just falling. And a lot of that, depending on your area and your temperature, is due to the heat. And peppers don't actually enjoy completely full sun. So if your peppers are struggling in the summer, maybe look into getting about a 40% shade cloth and putting that shade cloth over your peppers, and you'll be amazed at the difference it makes in them. My number 3 pepper mistake is gonna be placement. Now, I'm sure you've heard the myth that if you plant a spicy pepper next to a mild pepper, that once they actually start producing peppers, your mild pepper could actually end up spicy, or your spicy pepper could end up mild. Well, everything about that is wrong. With one exception. If you were to plant those 2 plants next to each other and they did cross, and then you save seeds from that plant and then grew those out the following year, then you might have a spicy pepper that's supposed to be a mild pepper. But if you're not planning on keeping your seeds, placement as far as putting spicy next to spicy, mild next to mild, then that's not an issue, so don't worry about that. If you do want to save your seeds, you can actually still plant those plants next to each other, and there's different ways of isolating the pepper plants, or at least branches of that pepper plant, in order to keep those seeds pure so you can keep them for the following season. If you go look at my short video, I have a video on that. Now, to go along with placement, most of these plants here are supposed to have the spacing of 18 to 24 inches, and every single one of these plants has 24 inches of spacing. As you can tell, that's not nearly enough space. Here, let me show you. I'm gonna try to walk to the camera right now so you can get an idea of how full this is back here. I gotta pull some branches up. All right, let's see. These plants are so close together that I can't move in here. Now, I don't mind trekking through the spicy jungle, but if you're somebody with limited mobility or you don't want to have to worry about trekking through stuff like this, make sure you're really thinking about the spacing that you have. If it's recommended 18 to 24 inches, it's not necessarily a bad idea to go 30 inches or 36 inches just to give it that extra little space to give you walkways in between. Mistake number 4 is improper watering. Peppers like consistent water, so if you have the ups and downs of letting them get super dry and then following it up with just flooding them and going back and forth like that, they don't care for that. You'll end up with things like edema and just some nasty stuff. Your peppers aren't gonna be very happy. So best case scenario, what you can do to make sure your peppers are being watered evenly and consistently is, first thing, you can put mulch around your pepper plant, and that's gonna help retain that moisture down at the roots where it belongs. It's not gonna evaporate quite as quickly, and your roots are gonna be the ones soaking up that water instead of the sun soaking up that water. Now, the next thing you can do is you can put your plants on a watering timer on a schedule to where it waters automatically by itself. This is probably the best way to keep it consistent and making sure it gets the same amount of water every time. We have a drip system, a drip irrigation system in our garden, so everything gets watered on a timer. I honestly haven't even been outside while it's watering at all this season. Every once in a while I'll come out here in the evening, make sure everything's still working right by kind of dipping my finger around, making sure everything's still moist from the morning. But aside from that, I don't worry about my plants getting watered because everything's on a timer. It's all set up automatically. If you don't have the luxury of a drip irrigation system or putting your water on a timer, then maybe set an alarm on your phone to where you're watering at the same time in the same intervals. So if you're somewhere where you water every 3 days, make sure you're watering every 3 days on a schedule, so that way your plants have consistent water and they are going to thank you for it. Another important thing to mention is your plants are going to be better off if you're watering at the ground level, the soil level, rather than overhead watering. If you have to overhead water, that's completely fine, but what can happen when you overhead water is you're going to splash some of that dirt up onto the leaves of the plant, and you can have some soil-borne diseases down there that can end up hurting your plant and potentially killing your plant. That's why we ended up going with drip irrigation. But if you don't have drip irrigation, then see if you can find a way to water your plants at the ground level. Maybe build your garden in rows to where you can just flood the row, or look into drip irrigation, because drip irrigation is awesome. But I do understand that not everybody can do that. Mistake number 5 is don't over-fertilize your plants. The biggest thing you want to be looking at here is when you first start deciding what fertilizer you're going to be using for your peppers, if any at all, look at the NPK ratio. The N in that stands for nitrogen, and with pepper plants and a lot of other plants too, but with pepper plants specifically, if you add too much nitrogen, they're gonna focus on leafy green growth. They're not gonna worry about putting out flowers or producing peppers for you whatsoever. So if you keep feeding that plant nitrogen, it's gonna keep growing and getting bigger and bigger, but you're not gonna get anything out of it. If you wanna give it some extra nitrogen to give it that boost at the beginning of the season, when you don't want it to be producing peppers yet anyways, feel free to give it some extra nitrogen to give it that boost, but then cut that nitrogen off as soon as you want that plant to start producing peppers instead of just producing branches and leaves. In previous years, we've been really into synthetic fertilizers, and this year I kind of switched to wanting to do more organic stuff. So what I did is at the end of the season last year, I put 3 to 4 inches of compost over the top of the entire garden. And so far this year, we've used synthetic fertilizer once, and it was only because I had some left over and I just wanted to hurry up and get rid of it. Our peppers have never been as healthy as they are this year with just using compost. We also have worm castings and things like that, but everything we've been using is organic. And in my opinion, our biggest victory this season has been the compost that we put over the garden at the end of last season. These plants are seriously massive. Some of them come up to my chest. They're all completely loaded up with peppers. I'll be doing a harvest video here shortly. If you don't go with compost and you are going with something synthetic, go for a more balanced fertilizer. The one that I really do enjoy is the Haas 20-20-20, and it's a balanced fertilizer straight across. So yes, you're still getting that nitrogen into your plants, but you're also getting them everything else they need to be putting on the flowers and producing fruit. But the biggest mistake you can make there is just giving them that high nitrogen all season long because you want them to grow. You want to make sure you give it to them balanced so they don't just put out green and leafy growth. And number 6 is not keeping up with the harvest. We just had a baby a month ago, and I hardly have the time to come out here and film, let alone come out here and harvest. So I've kind of neglected the pepper patch out here, and now I'm starting to see the issues arise from that. Normally what happens in a normal season here at our place is our pepper plants push out the peppers, we come out and we harvest them all real quick, we harvest them as fast as we can. As soon as those peppers are ripe, we get in there and we harvest them. And what that does is it triggers the plant to say, hey, I need to push out more peppers, because the life cycle of a pepper plant is it pushes out peppers, those peppers ripen on the vine, that pepper dies off, and then the seeds from those peppers resprout. right? Well, if you are pulling those peppers off as soon as they become ripe, it's telling the pepper plant that it needs to push out more fruit because it has no fruit on it currently, or no ripe fruit on it currently at least. What ends up happening is if you keep up with your harvest and you go out there every day, every other day, and you pull off the ripe peppers, your plants are going to continue to produce and give you more and more and more peppers until you hit your frost, if you have a frost. If you let your peppers just sit on the plant while they're ripe, like I have back here right now, your peppers are going to put those out and they're just going to sit there and keep those peppers on the plant, and they're not going to push out any new peppers. So if you want to maximize your pepper production, keep up with it. If you got value out of this video, go down and hit the like button and consider subscribing to our channel. We really do appreciate it. And now that you know how to grow the best peppers in the world, go watch this video right here where you can learn how to grow the best peppers in the world in a very small amount of space. Head over and watch that video and I'll see you there.